It's the Mr. Fitzy Painting Show. It's the Mr. Fitzy Painting Show. Robots, skeletons, and unicorns. Big wheels, elephants, and astronauts. It's the Mr. Fitzy Painting Show. It's the Mr. Fitzy Painting Show. Painting can take you where you wanna go. It's the Mr. Fitzy Painting Show. It's the Mr. Fitzy Painting Show.
Hi, welcome to the Mr. Fitzy Painting Show. And we're here in downtown Waukegan at my gallery, Dandelion Gallery. And so we're on location for today's show. I want to start off just talking a little bit about some paintings that are already completed. And then I'm going to paint a robot painting for today. So, what do you think this is a painting of? A train. And what city? It's actually an L train, the elevated train in Chicago. And we know that because we can see Willis Tower. You may know it as the Sears if you're as old as me, but they changed the name. And we can see the lake out behind it. Now, I changed the colors a little. There were some older L cars that kind of were green and white at the top, so I made that a little bit like the color. And then of course I just did a whole neon explosion of color for the train car itself. And there's the wooden tracks underneath the car, and the painting's going to be in a show downtown in the city at a restaurant that's going to be all about Chicago. So I just wanted to share it with you before we get going. Now, today I want to go through step by step how you paint a robot, or at least how I paint a robot. And if you want, you can follow along. So I just thought I'd show you some of my robot paintings and how I do it before I go step by step. This one is at night, and you can tell because the background is black. We still see a little bit of the sun that's setting. And he's all brown in here. He's got an umbrella and a paintbrush. And I'll tell you more later about how we make it step by step. I just wanted to show you some of the robots I had already completed. Here's I always think of this guy more like a baby robot. I have a new daughter at home, and I think that helped inspire me. Something about the way that the eyes are closer together and the body's a little smaller. I thought it had a feeling of a baby robot. So, without too much time in between, let's start right in on our painting. First thing is, this is called a stretcher, and it's cotton that's been stapled on here. You can buy the wooden stretcher bars, or you can buy it already made like I did for this one, and it's pulled tight and stretched on the back of these wooden stretcher strips. So the canvas, that's what we call this, has some bounce to it. Sometimes painters paint on wood, sometimes painters paint on paper, sometimes they paint on canvas, cotton canvas or linen canvas. Today I'm painting on a cotton canvas. But if you want, you can paint on a piece of paper, and you can use whatever kind of paint that you have. You could paint with watercolor. You could even do a finger painting of a robot if you wanted to. I'm going to use acrylic paint. And you're going to need water to thin out your paint, and of course you're going to need some brushes. I've got some round brushes to start off with. This has more bristles, and this brush has less bristles. Usually when you paint, you start off with a bigger brush, and then you move slowly towards the smaller brush for the details. So I've got some of my colors. I mix some white with some yellow ochre. That's like that tan kind of a yellow color. And then another yellow. And I'm going to take my brush. Sometimes artists use a palette knife to mix it all together. It's like a little flat knife. But I'm just going to use my brush to mix it up to make this yellow. But kind of a more of a earthy yellow. It looks a little bit like sand or something like that. And then I'm going to do that for the background. So I dip my brush in the water. And a lot of times I learned that you want to mix up your paint so that it's like cream, the consistency of cream. So it's a little bit flow on your brush, but not too drippy. And then for the background, I'm just going to kind of go all around. You hold your brush just like a pencil. This metal part is called the ferrule. You don't really need to know that, but it's kind of a fun word. And then I'm painting yellow all around. Maybe my robot will be outside in the morning time. Now, you can wait for one color to dry, or you can mix another color right into that color while it's still wet. For this one, I don't think I'm going to paint the whole canvas solid yellow. I'm going to leave it kind of brushy. It's starting to remind me a little bit of straw or something like that. I like that. Okay, so then this part's really important. I'm done with the background. I'm going to gently wash the extra paint out of my brush and just get the extra water off on the side. Because if you don't take good care of your brushes, they won't last. Now I'm going to set this brush aside and go on to my next brush, which is again is a round brush, which means the bristles of the tip are round. I'm going to dip it in the water, and I'm going to use black to outline my robot. So I load up my brush with black. Again, I'm dipping it back in the water so I get just the right amount of water. Because I don't want it too drippy, and I don't want it too thick. Alright, so the first thing we need is the body of the robot. What do you think the body of the robot might be? A rectangle. But how to make a rectangle? Well, a rectangle is made up of lines. So I make a line for the top of the robot. And then I make a line for the side of the robot. You can see the paint's a little bit thin there, so I can either leave it or I could go over and fill it in. I loaded some more paint on my brush. Now I always kind of twist that line of the side of the robot to make it look like the robot's wearing a shirt, even though she's a robot. She can have a shirt on like that. Or it could be a dress for the robot. So I make it a little bit wiggly. We call that an organic shape. Means it looks more like something that's really alive. Okay, I make the last line of my rectangle. A rectangle has 4 sides. So now I've got my body of the robot. And I go on to the legs. I usually do my legs of my robot like this. They're like rectangles too. The top side of the rectangle is already there. I just did the 3 other sides. Now I go on to the other leg. Tell me if I go too fast. Then I do the bottom. Come on up and make the top. Alright, now I've got the legs in there. For the feet, I first did this robot painting when I was in, well, it was a drawing, but I did it when I was in 1st grade, about 35 years ago. And I gave my robot feet that looked kind of like bird feet. I don't know why I did that, but I've made my robots with the same kind of feet ever since. So for the toe, he's going to have a claw like that. And you could put both of your robot's feet going one way, or you could put one foot going one way and one foot going the other way. For this robot, I'm going to have both of her feet facing her cave. And that's what the doorway is over there, if you remember from the painting that I showed you earlier. But I'm getting ahead of myself, so hang on. We've got to finish our robot before we make our cave. Okay, now, I always give my robot 4 eyes. Because a robot's a machine, they can have different parts than a person has. So I make a big oval. It's almost like an underwater diver mask. And an oval is a curvy line. So you have to turn your brush and put it on there carefully. Ooh, you can hear some trucks going by outside. Sometimes that's helpful when you're painting, to be able to hear everything that's going on in the street in a busy city. Then inside my oval, I make circles for the eyes, or ovals again. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. Now, my robot needs the eyeball in the middle of their eye. We call that like the pupil, the dark part in the middle of our eye. So they need their pupils. I make a little circle like that. Just very carefully make a little dab and a little dab the other way. You can see that I don't have to reload my brush with paint each time. Whoop. It happens. I can make all 4 pupils. Oh, I guess I couldn't. I had to dip back in the brush in the paint one more time. There's the eyes of my robot. Sometimes you got to take a step back and just see how it's going. I think this robot's going pretty good. She's looking pretty good. Now, you're probably wondering, where's the mouth? Good thought. I just make a line for the mouth. I make it a little bit of a smaller mouth than I've made, because each time you paint a robot, it's going to be a little bit different than the last time. That's just how it works out. It's also a good idea to have some paper towels or some napkins to wipe up in case you get some on yourself. Alright, next, let's make the heart of the robot. I always made a little window with an oval like this, And then I put the heart in so you can see the heart on the robot. Right now I'm going to change brushes because the heart's a little bit smaller and I think this brush is going to be too big for that detail. So I'm going to set my other brush down. I'm not going to wash it out because I'm going to go back to it pretty quick. And I load up one of my detail brushes with paint. And I get in there and I make a loop. And it's like a little bean. That's how I make the heart. Looks like a little bean. And because it's a robot, I'm going to make the heart on wheels. 1. They're just little circles. 2. 3. Now I've got the 3 little circles for my heart on there. I'm going to wash out this brush because I'm going to go back to my medium-sized brush to finish the arms. And we'll use this brush later. Okay, so for the arms, I make a loop. Then you need another arm, or another side to your arm, another line, so that you just don't have a stick arm. And a robot can be made of metal, so sometimes they might have segments, little parts of their arm, and instead of all the fingers of the hand, the robot just going to have 2. But they have magnets on their hands, so that's pretty good for holding stuff. And now I need an arm on the other side. Make a line. Load up some paint on the brush. Now what do I need? That's right, another line. I'll stop for a second to give you a chance to catch up. It's a good time for me to step back again and see how it's going. I think she's looking great. Alright. I can start dividing up those arms into segments while you catch up. Maybe you're ahead of me. You can always make your robot different from mine. I'm just showing you one way to make it. Okay. There's the other hand. Now I'm going to wash off my brush. And I'm going to do something different today. I'm going to use red for the cave. I like to do at least one thing different on each robot, or it'll get a little bit dull. So I've got some metallic red paint, really shiny, and I'm going to use that for the cave. There we go. And it looks like I missed a few spots, so I can go over that line again. Now I always put a door on the cave. So I'm going to wash out my brush, load it up with blue. See, for today I'm using red, yellow, and blue. Does anybody know what those colors are called? They're very special colors. Make a circle for the handle of the cave, the doorknob. You might not think a cave would have a doorknob, but you can make your robot however you want. I'm going to put a blue line on the top of her head too. Now it might mix some of the yellow together if the yellow is not completely dry. Do you know what color that might make? Looks a little bit like some green is peeking through. Yellow and blue make green. And see, red, yellow, and blue are the primary colors. From those colors, you can mix all the other colors that are. Now I'm loading up my brush with some yellow paint. And go back and put some yellow paint on those bird feet, right on the claws at the end. And I'm going to wash out my brush again. I like to make the heart red, and I forgot. So I got to go back to my cup, wash out that brush. Now's the time when I can add some more details in. Do things a little bit different. I'm going to add some color to those segments of those legs. And go back to the red for the sun. I always think about the robot leaving home, going outside. Maybe it's her first day of kindergarten. That can be a scary thing for a robot, for a person too. So, let's make sure we give her the paintbrush. So we'll go back to the detail brush, load it up with black. I'm going to put the paintbrush right over here. It's like a little oval. Then I make a circle at the end. And some lines for the bristles of the paintbrush. There she is. She's got her paintbrush. Now I have to think a little bit about what I might want to put in next for my robot. I think I have just the right color. It's a special neon pink. I'm going to add some pink onto her. I open my tube of paint up. It's important to put the cap back on afterwards so it doesn't dry out. I'm going to go back to my bigger brush. Look at that bright color. And I'm going to give it a try and see how that pink looks. It might blend up a little bit with that yellow because the yellow might not still be dry yet. It takes about 20 minutes for it to dry, but it's okay because I think it'll mix sort of a neon orange color. I take a step back and think, how's that robot turning out? That's a pretty bold pink, isn't it? I like it. Now, if you don't have a neon pink, you can just mix red plus white and make your own pink. I can hear the birds. It sounds like someone's cutting some trees or something. I can hear a saw out there. That's a nice thing about painting. You kind of give your mind a break and just get involved with putting on the paint, making the brush strokes. back and forth. There we go. I did pretty good not getting the black to mix all over the place. Alright, now I'm going to have to wash off my big brush and use my smaller brush to get in some of the details of that pink. It's also important not to leave your brushes sitting in the water cup like this, because then they'll get all bent up and they'll get ruined. So I wash out my brush. Get the extra water off like this. Don't tap. Splashes and it's noisy. I'm an art teacher too, so each day I go to school and teach the children. Alright, now I've got pink on my detail brush. I go up there by the eyes. Perfect. Gotta do the other side. Maybe you could paint your robot a different color. You don't have to make yours the same colors as mine. Okay. Now we're getting somewhere. Well, I washed my brush out because I got a little bit of the black in with the pink. That's okay. But when I went to do this top line, I wanted a little bit less of that. So I washed my brush out again. Now I got to take a minute and think about it. Where do I want to go from here? Oh yeah, her umbrella. Now you might be thinking, it's a sunny day. She doesn't need an umbrella. But this is more of a parasol. Have you ever heard of that? Sometimes you can carry a parasol, little umbrella, to keep the sun out of your eyes. Make a little handle with a loop. Make an oval for the umbrella. And 1, 2, 3 ovals. I didn't make my handle long enough though. So I've got to make the lines a little bit longer. And at the top, there's usually a little triangle. And I can make some lines, because robots have sections in their arms and umbrellas have sections. Now, I'm almost getting closer to the end. I'm thinking my sun needs a little bit more yellow on it. So I'm going to load up a medium-sized brush with yellow. This is a brighter yellow. Whoop. Too much paint. Different paint will mix differently. This yellow is kind of a little bit more clumpy. So I needed to slow down a little bit when I put it on. There we go. I'm going to put some yellow on the door to the cave. So it looks like the sun is shining off that door on a really hot day. I'm going to put a little bit of yellow on the top of her head. Show her the sun is shining off of there. And maybe some around the eyes. Maybe around the heart. Could put in a little bit of yellow. That's what artists do, is they repeat colors. They use them again at different spots around their paintings. Maybe her arms might have some yellow in there. And even some yellow on the legs. Yeah, now we're getting somewhere. I hope your robot's going well. Ooh, somebody started their car up. Okay. Some parts take longer than others. Might get a little tired of painting in the legs or the arms. But in the end, it'll be worth it. Your robot will be looking just like you want. So now, I'm going to switch to my detail brush. I usually make the umbrella yellow. I usually make the umbrella orange. So now, I'm going to change and make it blue. See how that looks. Oops. A spill. A drip. Sometimes you can leave drips, but I don't want to leave that one. So I quickly take my napkin or paper towel, give it a wipe, use my big brush, back in the yellow, good as new. Sometimes drips happen. Clean out that brush. Ooh, but I got a good idea. Instead of making my umbrella all blue, I could make a primary color umbrella. One part's blue, one part's red, and what's the third section gonna be? That's right, yellow. Red, yellow, blue. Those are your primaries. Okay. Now, let's see where we're at. I just had a little bit of yellow that I wanted to put around the eyes. And I think I want to go back and use some of that nice pink color. On those feet. Sometimes people will say pink is a girl color or blue is a boy color, but that's not true. Artists use all the colors. It just depends on what color you feel like on that day. So don't let anybody tell you that. Okay, the legs are all finished. Paintbrush needs a little color. So as you get further along in your painting and you're finishing all the little details, things start to move faster. You make different decisions about what color is going to go where. So you have more to think about. But if it's working really well, it just comes naturally. All right, got to put in some tracks for my robot walking along. And last but certainly not least, always remember, sign your painting. So I pick a corner right down here. And Mr. Fitzy always signs his paintings Fitz. My last name's Fitzgerald, but I just shorten it for my pictures. F-I-T-Z. And then I can put, ooh, somebody's upset. It's okay though. 13 for the year. So, thanks for joining me on the Mr. Fitzy Painting Show. We're all done. Till next time, see you in the studio.